I'm
Monica,
sure
are you allowed to speak in the beginning of the meeting, or is it just at the end?
for citizens' comments?
Yes.
Yes, I think there are two places. Let me check. I haven't.
One of them said online submissions, and I didn't know what that.
What we're going to do is, if you go down, it's either at the bottom of your screen if you're using a computer, and there's also a section in the phone if you're using a phone or a tablet. We're going to use the chat. So if when that time comes, people can just put their names into the chat, then I can call it in order. Does that make sense?
Yeah, if I can find, yeah, it does.
Right, so you should be able to chat, and that's just going to go to me.
Okay, so just put my name in?
Yeah.
Monica, can I just clarify, though, that there are two different spots, number 4 on the agenda, and then over under 6, L?
That's how I read it, but since I didn't develop that, I could defer to someone on the board, but that's how I read the agenda as well.
Thank you.
Okay, that's fine.
I had no video.
Yeah, I do now.
All right, so I have Mrs. Blackmar, I have Mrs. Jingro, Mr. Morrow, Ms. Knickie, I have Mrs. Dodd. Is that all I have present for the board now? I know that Mr. Sullivan is here. I know that Ed is here. Let me just check. Ed, are you the person who is owner?
Apparently, I don't know.
I'll tell you what, let me send you a message. Did you just get a message to start your video?
Okay.
That would be great, because then I can see all of you there. So if there is a vote or something where we have to see you, that will be perfect. Okay, now I have you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it is now 7:03. I apologize. I was having some technical difficulties. I'd like to call this Board of Education, a regular Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, May 19th to order. And the first item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our student representative, are you there? Hi, Molly.
Hi, Molly.
Hi, so I also have Noah Tompkins here with me today to kind of touch on just some things that have been going on and what people have been doing. So to start, the National Honor Society, every year we do something for Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week. And this year we were kind of stumped because we weren't at school, so we were kind of like, what do we want to do? So as a National Honor Society, we came up with an idea to each send in a little clip of a video saying thank you to the teachers and staff for everything you did throughout the year and especially during distance learning. So then we compiled that into one big video and just sent that out to all the teachers and posted it on YouTube to say thank you to all the teachers in the district. And then also a group of seniors met with administration and a few teachers the other day to kind of talk about the idea of graduation, because originally we had all said we really wanted an in-person graduation, but then the more we thought about it, we kind of realized we don't know how likely that's going to be just due to everything that's happening with COVID-19. So we brought up the idea of a drive-in graduation, and it was kind of a big hit amongst all the seniors that were in the Zoom. So I'll let Noah take over on the things that he was going to talk about.
So we also did videos for the elementary school. This week they have their Spirit Week. So we did a little video, a few members from NHS talking about, what days are which. We dressed up. We did fun things. We'd also like to say thank you for all the teachers. We've had AP exams this week, and all the teachers have been sending us emails every day, videos, kind of trying to just, get us excited and helping us through this, difficult time, even with exams on top of it.
So that was about it. That's all we had. Pretty much, we've just, as an NHS, kind of been trying to keep students involved between all the different schools and just our school in general. So that was all we had.
Thank you, Molly. I did see that that YouTube video that you all did. I thought it was awesome. You did a really nice job.
Thank you.
Okay. Dan, would you like to take over for the first item on the agenda, nomination of board officers?
Yes, happy to do so. As you know, Mike Morrill resigned as board chair at our last meeting, and Jeannie Dodd has graciously fulfilled that duty as acting board chair. But at this time, I would like to make a call for nominations for chairperson of the Board of Education. At this time, do we have any nominations from the board? Go ahead, Ed.
I also have Jill.
Ed, why don't you-
Jill, can you, yeah, thank you. Unmute yourself there.
Ed was first though.
Okay.
Well, Jill,
Do
you're
you
live.
want
Why
to,
don't you make your
Jeannie,
nomination?
as the chair, I'm going to need you to make that call. I can't see, I have the screen over part of it so that I can see the chat and everybody trying to enter. So I missed Ed's hand.
So Jill, go first, Ed goes second.
I would like to nominate Jeannie Dodd to be the chair.
I'll second. Am I coming through?
Yes, you
Yep,
did.
I can hear you fine. I can hear your second.
All right.
Any other nominations from the board?
I motion to close the nominations.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So what we'll need to do is, being that this is virtual, if you could by chat box, put your vote through to Monica, not
Yep, and I
to
have it down.
all, but directly to Monica, and she will record the number of votes in the affirmative, any negatives, and any abstentions.
Where is the chat box?
On the bottom, Ed, are you on a computer? If you just hover down to the bottom of your screen, you should see a number of things come up. Chat should be right in the middle.
I see nothing.
Ed, text me your nomination, I'll have it.
I nominate Jeannie.
I know, but text me your vote. I need it in writing.
Oh, on the phone?
Yes, that'll work.
All right.
Monica, I'll forward it to you.
We need to go.
Thank
right?
you.
If you hover your cursor down at the bottom, you'll see the chat box. So Monica, when you have received votes from everyone except for Chris and Marie Ann,
Okay,
you
that's what I was
just-
going to ask. So I'm looking for 7 votes.
right?
All right, we have 7 votes in.
Did you find it?
We do have 7 votes in. Jeannie, we have 6 affirmative and 1 abstention.
Okay. So let the record show. Sorry, where'd Dan go?
I'm right here.
So Dan, can you just move to the second part of that nomination?
Now that we have a chair, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Ms. Dodd.
So,
Congratulations on your appointment.
Congratulations.
I just need you to
I don't see it.
reiterate what Ms. Giglio Casper had put in, that who was elected for the board chairman.
In a 6-0-1 vote, Jeannie Dodd has been named chairperson of the Putnam Board of Education for the remainder of this term.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is going to be appointment of election, I should say, of board secretary.
Excuse me, Jeannie? Before we do, we just lost Carrie. She's trying to log back in, so I apologize for interrupting, but Monica, if you could just be on the lookout for her.
Yeah, I'm trying to, yep, not yet. So she's probably working her way back in.
Okay, I apologize. She had just asked us to pass that along. Sorry, Jeannie.
No, that's fine.
It happens at all of our Zooms too. Is she saying anything else, Jill? Because I know that she's not here yet.
She just said that she was trying.
Oh, there she is. Got her.
Okay. So the next item would be to appoint a secretary to the Board of Education. Do we have a motion for board secretary?
Ed?
I'd like to motion Mary Ann Vians.
So
I'm seeing no
being that
seconds, Jeannie.
Being that Maureen is not present, I was not made privy that she was interested in the position.
Jeannie, I'd like to make a motion for Jill Zangrel as secretary.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I see a second with Lauren.
I'll second it.
Lauren was the first second, if you will.
Okay, so we had a motion for Marie Ann Vians that was not seconded. We had a motion for Jill Zangrel, which was seconded. Do we have a motion to close nominations?
I'll make a motion to close nominations for secretary.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we need to do a vote again? If you could please put that vote by chat box to Monica and she will give us the results. No, do you need to come over there or? Then just text it to Dan and forward it. Or I can
Sorry, excuse me, I gotta mute somebody here. There. Who is the Putnam BOE besides? Okay.
that would be myself and Jamie.
Okay, I saw the, I have your, okay.
Okay.
I've got yours, Jeannie. I have another one. Let's see. One. 2, 3, 4, 5. Still waiting on 2.
The other one's coming.
Okay. There we go. We have 6 affirmative and 1 abstention.
Okay, well, welcome, Jill. You are duly elected as Secretary to the Board of Education. Thank you for stepping forward. And I look forward to teaching you the ropes. All right, next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Need a motion to approve the April 21st regular meeting minutes and the April 27th urgency meeting minutes as presented.
So moved.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, so Jamie moved and Jill seconded. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
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 Okay. So correspondence. Dan, do you have any correspondence?
I do. I have correspondence from Carrie. She sent a thank you note to the board and the staff for the beautiful plant and cards and messages that she's received and that her family has received during this very sad time on her behalf and her family's. So again, our condolences to Carrie and her family.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we also had some correspondence from different citizens in regards to the budget. Through the town website, we had correspondence to members of the Board of Finance as well as Board of Education from Barbara Loudon regarding the budget. We had correspondence to Board of Ed, the Selectmen and Board of Finance from Chad Neal. We had correspondence from Cecile Lee. And there were correspondence via Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and to the Board of Education as well from Edward Ardiaco. And then another correspondence through the budget comments from Chris Jett. And those will be available as part of the minutes. Any questions? All right. So that moves on to presentations. The Pride of Putnam Awards. Putnam Middle School and Putnam High School are this month. So if we can get started with the Putnam Middle School, Dr. Bruce.
Good evening, everyone. I have the joy tonight of bringing some of our staff members for Pride of Putnam. As the board knows, I typically don't bring teachers to Pride of Putnam because many of my teachers have young children at home or they live quite a ways away. And so it's sometimes difficult and I don't want them to feel the burden of needing to come back after working all day and to leave their families for Pride of Putnam. So when we went virtual for this meeting, I thought it was a great opportunity for me to recognize 5 of the teachers in our building. The first teacher I want to recognize for Pride of Putnam tonight is Odina Lafreniere. Odina is our 8th grade math teacher. And the reason I'm recommending Odina and recognizing her for Pride of Putnam is just something that she did during the course of distance learning on top of everything that she does throughout the school year. However, a couple of weeks ago, there was a fire near Odina's home, and she knew that one of our students who had 2 parents whose parents were at work and not home with the child child was home alone by herself. Odina jumped in her car and drove over to make sure that the child was safe. It was not the family's house, it was a neighbor's house, but still Odina recognized that it was going to be startling for the child to watch this happen to a neighbor. And so she went and supported that child and made sure that that child felt safe and was in contact with the child's parent. And I really just felt as though going above and beyond for Odina, it was that Odina had gone above and beyond on this, and I certainly wanted to recognize her for Pride of Putnam for this. And that just coupled with all of the other things she does to support our 8th graders. She's the person who takes the lead on planning the 8th grade trips. So when that had to be canceled this year, I know it was heartbreaking for everyone, but for Odina in particular, who had put a lot of effort into making sure that our kids were going to have a great opportunity. And so with that, congratulations, Odina. Thank you for everything you do for our kids and for our staff.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if I can unmute this, but thank you, Terry.
Yes, you can.
The next teacher I want to recognize for Pride of Putnam is our school counselor, Pam Moriarty. Pam, and I'm actually going to recognize Pam and our 7th grade, one of our 7th grade language arts teachers, Megan Wakely, at the same time. Together, Pam and Megan form the core of our PBIS team. They have served as our PBIS coaches for a number of years. Pam was one of the founding members of the PBIS committee and helped to get it off the ground for our school before I became principal. And she has always been a go-to person for PBIS. When Megan was hired for Putnam, she came to us with a vast knowledge of PBIS from her previous school in New Hampshire, and she has continued to bring that knowledge and strengthen PBIS at our school. She and Pam make quite the formidable team. Megan recently, actually it was a few months ago, had completed the trainer of trainer models for PBIS through New England. And so she's actually able to do training, not just for our school, but district-wide, and go out to other districts to do that training. So the two of them, like I said, work as quite the team. They are both also on our district SRBI PBIS team. And they've made sure that we have PBIS going on throughout distance learning. We have weekly PBIS drawings that we all work together on based upon the effort and responsibility that kids are showing through distance learning. So I want to congratulate Pam and Megan and thank them for all that they do for PBIS, for our students, and for our staff as well.
Very nice. Thank you
Thanks,
very
Terry.
much.
Thank you, Terry. I
We
appreciate
couldn't do
it.
it without you, Terry.
Yep.
Thank you. We all make a good team at the middle school, a great team.
You did make
The
a
next
great
person
team.
I want to recognize is Angie Kwasny. And Angie is our technology education teacher. And oftentimes you have seen Angie come to Board of Education meetings to support our students as they have presented their presentations about invention, convention, or robotics. But one of the things that Angie did was, excuse me, one of the things that Angie has done has been, she's been a critical support for our staff through distance learning too. When we moved to distance learning, Angie, along with Stacy Ristow, who I'm going to be recognizing next, did a lot of training for our staff. And I know that that was greatly appreciated by our staff and by myself as well. And so with that, Angie certainly is not just a support for kids. I know of several teachers who reach out to her, Angie, I'm stuck with something, and she'll talk them through whatever the glitch might be on Microsoft Teams or whatever may happen. And so Angie's been a real support to our staff. While I have her here, and we just got this news yesterday, and some of you may have seen it on our social media posts, but another one of our students, Melody Anderson, has earned her way to nationals for Invention Convention again this year. Melody went last year to Invention Convention at the national level, and she learned just last night that she again was accepted. So there is a lot of information on our Parent Square posts on our school Facebook page, the district Facebook page, about Melody's invention. So Angie, along with eighth grade science teacher Sue Donnell are the advisors for that. But Angie really helped Melody guide her invention during the course of distance learning and before. So I just want to congratulate Angie and thank her again for all she does for students and staff.
Awesome.
I really appreciate it.
And the last person I want to recognize for Pride of Putnam is our library media specialist, Stacy Ristow. With distance learning, when we realized that we were going to be moving to distance learning, Stacy came to me and she said, Terry, let me know if there's anything you need me to do. Unlike teachers, I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough to fill my days. And I will do anything I need to do to help support kids in the school. Well, as we go through, Stacy certainly has had more than enough to fill her days, and then some. And that has not even been a question about the use of her time. She has been a resource to teachers, just like Angie has, and since several other teachers, but she has just gone above and beyond. If there's a question about technology, she will research it and come back with the answer very quickly, and has been a liaison between students and staff and our IT people, and has just been a huge resource. Similar to Angie, when we moved to distance learning, Stacy spent those first few days researching different IT platforms and different opportunities and technology resources for our students and for our staff, and then turned around and did presentations for all of us on those platforms. And we could not have gotten the jump start on distance learning had it not been for the efforts of Stacy back in the beginning of March. I put the links to a couple of videos that Stacy has put together during distance learning, and those videos serve to connect our staff with our students and vice versa. And I know that a number of people had tears in their eyes upon watching those videos. So it's just been a wonderful resource for our staff, for our students, and I just want to thank Stacy for all that she does.
You're definitely welcome. I have a great staff that I want to work hard for.
And so that's all I have for Pride of Putnam. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bruce. On behalf of the Board of Education, we do really appreciate all the extraordinary efforts that the 5 of you have given to our students and our school district. And I'd like to extend that out to all of our faculty and staff. We really do appreciate everything everyone is doing to keep kids connected and continuing to learn during this difficult time. Any other comments from the board?
Not seeing any.
Okay. All right. So the next item on the agenda is citizen comments. So if anybody chooses to leave the Zoom meeting at this time, feel free to do so. We're not going to take a 5-minute break. We're just going to go right into citizens' comments.
Okay, for citizens' comments, Jeannie, if anyone wants to put their name into the chat, I already have one that we started with. And would that work for you if I call them as they come up on the chat?
Most definitely.
Okay.
I don't see anybody on that.
I do. Actually, the first comment would be from Joanne Jocelyn.
Okay.
Joanne, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, my name is Joanne Jocelyn. I live here in Putnam, and I have 2 grandchildren in the Putnam school system. One is at the high school and one is at the elementary school. I was also a secretary at Putnam Middle School for 27 years, retiring in 2014. I worked for 4 different principals, and I would just like to say that Dr. Bruce needs an assistant principal, a dean of students, whatever you want to call it. That woman works tirelessly with the new the evaluation system for the teachers. It's impossible for her to do discipline and evaluate all of her teachers in the way that they should be. Every time we've gotten one, I believe in 1999, we had an intern, and then they hired one for an assistant principal for maybe 2 years, and that was the first thing they cut out of the budget that year when they needed to save some money. The high school probably has about the same number of students as the middle school, and I just believe that the middle school also deserves to have an assistant principal, dean of students, whatever you want to call that person. I also wanted to say that I truly believe that the kids are going to need familiarity when they come back to that building, those buildings. The bus drivers, the custodians, the cafeteria workers, the paras, the teachers, the secretaries, they're all one unit. When I used to walk into that building, I was with my family, my work family for the day, and the kids were our kids that day. And these kids, whether they're high school, middle school, elementary school, they're going to be afraid, they're going to be apprehensive, and they are going to need that love of the paras and the teachers and everybody in those buildings. And I really don't think now is the time to take the chance that we're going to lose those custodians or the bus drivers or a para or anyone else. I do think that boys volleyball can wait. I don't want to see any sports get cut. These kids have had to go without enough. But I just would like to say, you know, I hope you take this into consideration. And if anything goes in, I hope that Miss Bruce finally gets an assistant principal. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also have Trey Mayo for comment.
Okay, Troy.
Hi, good evening. Troy Mayo, custodian for the Putnam Public Schools. I would just like to ask the Board of Education to reconsider retaining the facilities staff employees and not outsourcing us or make cuts to our staff. If outsourced, the facility staff is concerned about losing our jobs, our pay, and our benefits. We understand the hardship everyone has gone through over the past few months, but it's been the current facility staff that has made it possible for our buildings to remain open to administrators, secretaries, teachers, whenever needed. At the recent Board of Finance meeting, Putnam Public Schools staff, parents, and taxpayers voiced their concerns over outsourcing. We know what the budget is, and we know what new positions the Board of Ed is trying to implement for the next fiscal year. But let's face it, we're trying to eat prime rib on hamburger budget. Hire the special education staff that is needed and table other positions when the budget allows so that we can retain the current employees. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Troy.
I see no one else in the queue in the chat waiting for comment.
Okay. Any more?
Oh, I have one more, and it is, I think it's Tony Cosentino.
Yes, hello. Hi, am I coming through?
Yes, you are. We can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. Yeah, my name's not Tiny. I'm sorry about that.
I figured.
Okay, I live on 384 Sabin Street, and I definitely want to echo the previous sentiment that as a parent of 2 students in the school district, I would not like to see any outsourcing of our facility services at all in our district and in our town. I mean, usually our school district employees, they perform a large range of tasks that are not typically thought of being as their official jobs and stuff. And the great majority of our educational support workers, whether they be bus drivers, custodians, they live in our district where they're employed. And they really tend to feel responsible for their neighbors and their quality of work. And what I've seen over the years, that when you see any kind of private contractors coming in that base their sales pitches on the premise that they could provide the same or greater service at lower cost, In other words, the same for less. In reality, it's rarely the same. And there's a lot of risks. I'm worried about lower quality services. I'm worried about the kind of things where my kid's bus route might be cut all of a sudden because in the name of profit, a lot of these companies are big national corporations. And I know, I'm not sure which ones are being bid out, but when I heard about this, I felt like coming and voicing my opinion. So I support our current staff, and if they support remaining, keeping their services and not privatizing, I'm with them 100% as a voter. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay, and that, oh, I have one more, Liz Bates. Liz, you're going to have to unmute yourself. You should be able to do that. Let me just check with you.
Okay, can you hear me?
You got it. Perfect.
Perfect. I know I spoke at the Board of Finance meeting, but I would like to also reinstate what people have been saying about outsourcing. The company I work for is also an educational facility. We had an outsourced cleaning service, and they just did not have the attention to detail or the desire or the pride in the building or any of that. It caused a whole lot more problems having somebody else do the facilitation and the legislative work for a lot more headache and a lot less cleanliness and zero control. You're looking at causing a lot of, you're going to cause more problems than you've got now. And staff, at least from the elementary and the middle school, because that's where my children attend, have been amazing. The current staff, the office staff, the custodians, anything we've needed as parents and reached out, we've had response in a quick and timely fashion. These people are working really hard and probably almost 4 times as much as if they were preparing in their own classroom for a typical day. They're living their own lives with their families home quarantined with them, but they are still there from 7 a.m. until long after 3 p.m. For our kids. So I think that maintaining what we currently have should be our top priority, whether it is the secretarial staff or the custodial staff. But also it's important to remember that the teachers, the paras, the special ed teachers, which are in huge need in our district, we need to support who has been driving our children to begin with. So I hope that you will consider making a step towards recognizing the importance of what is going on in our town and who has been driving the force behind our children's continued learning. Because I have a lot of friends with kids in other districts who are like, oh yeah, they aren't really giving any work. They're not really doing anything. They're not grading. Some places are even not sending their kids on to the next grade. Whereas our kids will go on to the next grade, and I have a feeling a lot of them are going to be fairly successful and pretty prepared because the teachers are putting in the time, the effort, and the work. And that's coming from the support of the staff and the administrators and the custodians and the secretaries that are still going into the building and making it possible for them.
Chad Neal is next. Mr. Neal, if you can unmute.
Yes.
There we go. Thank you.
Chad Neal, 20 Pleasant Street in Putnam. First, I would like to thank, as a parent of 2 students in Putnam schools, just thank the teachers, staff, and administrators, custodians, and really all staff for the wonderful job the past couple of months. I know the videos my son sees each morning, and my stepdaughter helps prepare, and everything kind of brightens the day, and it's an outstanding job. I know I sent a letter in and commented at the Board of Finance meeting, but just wanted to reiterate some points I had made. I am not in favor of outsourcing custodians and bus drivers. I know we're looking at costs, but again, to reiterate what Joanne said, Troy said, and Liz said, these people are kind of the heartbeat of our schools. The bus drivers are the first people they see in the morning a lot of times, and the last people they see when they get dropped off. The custodians know the ins and outs of the building. They're friendly, And these people are, we see in our community day in and day out, whether it's in youth sports or in the downtown. And I think we got to take care of our own. And I know the amount in the budget is not what everybody had asked for. However, I am not in favor of adding certain positions when other positions that we currently have may be cut. I'm not in favor, obviously, right now of adding volleyball as a sport. Any other year, absolutely, I'm pro sports and everything like that, but with the closest opponents such as Rockville or NFA and travel and everything else going on, that's not something right now. And also the security guards at this point, or possibly looking at cutting that in half with one at the high school and one in between the middle school and elementary school. But I just wanted to, close up by just thanking all the staff, teachers, and everybody in Putnam schools for the wonderful job they've done the past couple of months. So thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
I have no one else in the queue right now.
Okay, seeing that there's no one else in the queue, I was remiss and I missed the school for the Pride of Putnam Award. So if we could just go back to that item on the agenda, I apologize profusely. So if we can move to PHS, Pride of Putnam Awards.
No problem. Thanks, Jeannie. Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be able to recognize 3 students tonight for Pride of Putnam. We have senior students, Molly McKeon, who is on. Noah Tompkins, I see, is here. And I'm not certain if Brooke Peliquin is here, but 3 students tonight. I'm really proud of their accomplishments. My 2 older students, I probably will hopefully see them at graduation. Not sure. We wish them luck. I also, they're senior students, so they'll be moving on. We will be seeing Brooke. She's got another year with us. But I also have 2 staff members that are on the Zoom tonight that would like to say a few words about our students. I'll start with our NHS advisor, Erin Doran, and then we'll move into school counselor, Courtney Prendergast.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. I've been the advisor for the National Honor Society for many years, and this year the National Honor Society has worked hard to contribute to the school's community throughout the year. Much of that credit belongs to our co-presidents of the National Honor Society, Molly McKeon and Noah Tompkins. At any point this year, I have given them many ideas, and these leaders have taken those ideas to get the job done and work with their fellow peers, no matter the obstacles, especially within the distance learning. With distance learning, they have still continued to be leaders and work on videos for the faculty members, as some of you have seen. Make a promotional video for the elementary school, again, some have seen, and continue to be successful in their own learning, which is a feat of its own. These 2 exemplify what it means to be in the National Honor Society and deserve the Pride of Putnam Award for hard work, thoughtfulness, and giving back to the community. Congratulations, you 2. I'm going to miss you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think we should have Courtney next, Ms. Prendergast.
There we go. Hi, everyone. So I will be speaking and introducing Brooke Peliquin. So Brooke is a current junior at the high school, and she is an outstanding student and leader also at the high school. She actually was selected by a committee to participate in the Connecticut Scholars Essay Program and was honored to become a semifinalist in that essay contest.
Oh, wow.
And so we're all really proud of her. She'll be starting her senior year, taking many AP classes. She's very involved. She's definitely a leader within the high school. So Brooke, do you want to say anything? Thank you. So we're happy to have her here.
Very good. Congratulations, students. We really appreciate everything that you've done for your school and being active participant in the running of your school, as well as attending to your own academic needs. So congratulations. All right. Superintendent Sullivan, do you have any other online submissions from citizens?
I do not.
Okay. So moving on, we're going to move on to reports of officers, standing committees. So the first one would be policy committee report. So in the policy committee met just prior to this meeting, and oh dear. We are going to warn for adoption several policies. So, Mr. Sullivan, you have that packet in your office. Oh, I got it.
Okay.
So the first policy that the policy committee would like to warn for adoption is policy 5111, admission. There are modifications based on state statute that are made to that policy. Then policy P5112, ages of attendance. Again, there's just some clarification in the policy to help guide for children incoming as well as for our high school students. Then policy 5131.6, alcohol use, drugs, and tobacco, of which CBD was added to the policy. And then in conjunction with a policy for this, there's also a regulation that will be brought forward for approval. And then policy 5141.4, reporting child abuse, neglect, and sexual assault. This is a mandatory policy, and the revisions based on current statute. And there's also a regulation associated with this policy. And then policy 3171.1, which is a new policy, non-lapsing education fund. Any questions about the recommendation from the policy committee? Okay, those policies will be available and will be on the agenda for June. Next item on the agenda is facilities committee report. Jamie?
There is no update for the facilities committee at this point.
Okay. Curriculum committee, Carrie?
At this, we have not met, so there is no update as of right now.
Okay. Is there any update for communication? I know that Maria is not with us tonight. Any other, Jill?
No, we haven't met since then, since last time.
Okay. So we have an ad hoc committee to deal with transportation and outsourcing of transportation and facilities. Any report on that, Jamie?
Yeah. All right. I know there's a lot of concern about this. I know there's a lot of people on Zoom tonight. A lot of you know me, been in town my whole life. We're not looking to put anybody out of a job. We are looking at all options to save money off the budget. It's going to be a very hard hit for us this year. And we have to try to come up with ways to save some money. So with that being said, we're not ready to make that decision yet. They have some proposals. The proposals are very interesting. They're very thick, a lot of detail to them for both the transportation and the custodians. We have not had a chance to go through the entire proposal. One of them is 82 pages, and there's just a lot of information. What I do want to kind of talk about real quick is our goal with it. Because like most people in town, I mean, I went to school here, my parents did, my kids did, my grandson's in school. I'm not looking to have anybody out of a job. Because I know a lot of people that work here. Our hope is if everything goes the way it appears on the proposal, nobody will be losing a job. The custodians, for instance, the company that's bidding on it has the same union as you're presently in. That would not change. Benefits would be, from what it appears at this point, from what I've looked at, very similar, if not a little bit better. Transportation, the benefits are actually a little bit better. There are things with the new company, pay rate is the same or slightly higher. They have agreed, if this goes through, to hire the bus drivers we have, keep the routes the same, so our kids would still see the same bus drivers. That was one of our, as a committee, that was one of our big concerns, was to make sure, I mean, I had the same bus driver pick all for my kids up almost their entire school life here. You get to know the bus driver, you feel comfortable. I understand all of that because I had that same feeling of safety with my kids with the same bus driver. And that's our hope. That's what we're trying to do. My request is if anybody has questions, concerns, before we make this decision, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. I can be reached after 6:30 at night on weekends. I'm around if you need my phone number. If you want to give Mr. Sullivan a call, I'll give her permission to give out my cell phone number. Please call me. I'd love to talk to you and find out what the concerns are. I want to make sure if we do this, it's right for everybody. And I mean that seriously. I don't want to hurt anybody. But we have some really tough choices to make. There has to be cuts somewhere. And if it's not this year, you already know the next 2 or 3 years after this is going to be very difficult for us financially. When 80% of our budget is payroll, there's only so many areas we can cut from. And we're trying not to do that. We're trying to come up with innovative ways to save money. As it looks right now, with outsourcing the custodians and the transportation, there is some significant savings to the town. Enough savings where, as the board, we have to look at. We can't just ignore it. But the contracts include keeping all the present employees. You just wouldn't be employees of the town, you would be employees of the company that are outsourcing. There's a lot of good benefits to that. And I know there's some perceived setbacks. Again, I'm asking to table this as far as a vote tonight so we can finish going through this. It's not something I want to rush a vote on. This is something I want to fully vet and look through. So I know, Troy, you had questions. If you want to reach out to me, please do. Mark, same with you, Mark Kader. Call me. Love to sit down and chat with you on the phone, on a Zoom meeting, in person, whatever. I know it's a big concern of everybody and a lot of people in town, and this is not something we are taking foolishly. You know, it's very serious. Everybody that's looking into this understands the consequences, especially transportation, because if we outsource transportation, that's a decision when you make it, you can't just undo it easily. These are both long-term contracts, which will protect the vendor and the town for, you know, frivolous increases. Again, anybody who's on the transportation department have questions, reach out to me. Dan, if they call you and they're from those departments, please give them my cell phone number. Remember, after 6:30 in a week and on weekends, I'd be more than happy to talk to you. So please do call me. And again, This is not something being taken lightly.
Jamie, do you have a recommendation for a special meeting to deal with that?
I absolutely do. It has to be at least 7 to 10 days out. I want to have opportunity to talk to some of the people, and I need the opportunity to go through I believe the custodial proposal is 82 pages long.
So would you like to look at it next week or the week after? First week of June.
Let's take a look. How about we do it?
Jeannie, I'm sorry, I missed the last bit of what you said. We had to mute you to keep the echoing from happening with Jamie's mic.
I'm sorry, Monica.
I caught Jeannie like sort of mid-sentence and what she had just said. You guys are in the same room so you can hear each other, but she was muted for a bit because it was affecting your microphone. So that whatever your last.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
So what I was asking is if Jamie had a recommendation for a special meeting date in order to discuss outsourcing further. So he's looking at potential dates. So Superintendent Sullivan, if you can look at your calendar as well, and if Nancy can look at her calendar.
I could, but I know I saw Jeff Rawson on, and I saw Mike Paquin on, who's on the Board of Finance. I don't want to interfere with any of their meetings, so if residents want to see both, I'd rather have it on a night that's not a Board of Selectmen or a Board of Finance meeting. So if, let's say, June 2nd, which is a Tuesday, if there's a Board of Finance meeting or a Board of Selectmen meeting, if Jeff or Mike Paquin could just put in the chat that they do, we could pick a different day.
I've got nothing in the chat right now.
Okay, so if we can tentatively schedule that for Tuesday, June 2nd. Superintendent Sullivan, does that work for you?
It does.
7 o'clock?
Yeah. 7 p.m.?
Sure.
It should be hopefully a very short meeting. But again, that's going to be the sole topic. The special meeting will be for the custodial and transportation department.
Outsourcing.
And I truly do hope some people from those departments contact me. If they feel they need a meeting of all of them before then, I'm sure we could set up a Zoom meeting with both those departments at the same time. I'm willing nights, anytime during the weekend, to have a Zoom meeting with the custodial department and the transportation department. And we can just shoot questions back and forth. I'll try to answer questions. I want everybody to feel comfortable with this, including myself.
I'm sorry, I have a note, Jamie, that from Maura Higginson that says there's not a Board of Finance meeting that evening, so that you have that information. So that's good.
And I just want to echo what Jamie said about the time and how important it is. I attended the Board of Finance meetings as well, and I don't know as many people in town as Jamie, but getting feedback is important because what we all heard was that we want to protect our people, and we couldn't agree with that more. We want to be there for our employees, we want to be there for our students, and I think taking this time gives us that opportunity to make sure that that's what the proposal do, because it's very important for us to make sure that that's the case. So thank you, Jamie, for bringing all that up.
Thanks, Jill. Also, another note, there's also no selectmen's meeting, so it looks like it's a good date.
Thank you all.
Okay, so June 2nd, 7 p.m. So if any board members would like to review the information, just please contact Superintendent Sullivan, and it will be available for you to look at. And next on the agenda are the financial reports. Nancy? Sorry, I apologize. There's no CABE event update. Okay, Nancy.
Thank you. You have in your packet an updated financial report. It's the projected balance is a little higher than what we were looking at last month. Again, I'm only putting expenses in as I know. I tried to factor out the account numbers that I know we're not going to be having any more expenses for, obviously, for the remainder of the year. And I know there was some comments about what the savings would be for athletics in the spring, and we did have some athletics expenses that weren't totally complete in the fall and winter, but the overall athletic accounts are showing approximately $107,000 worth of unexpended funds due to the spring sports. So that has been factored into the report as well. So I also included the narrative. It is a reporting month. So I included that in the packet. The excess cost report is reflecting, you know, we update that on a monthly basis. So that is reflecting where we are currently with students. We are projecting about a 74.8% increase, a 78% reimbursement rate this year for that. We were told by the State Department we would be getting that funding.
Okay. Any questions for Nancy? Okay, thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.
Superintendent Sullivan?
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I have a few things to bring you up to speed on tonight. First is the solar project. Am I muted?
No, I can
Okay.
hear you just fine. Is there anybody else? Is anybody having trouble?
Okay.
Well, I'm getting
Solar
thumbs up.
project. Putnam High School has its town building and electrical inspection tomorrow for sign off. Once this is completed, Eversource has to come in and sign off, at which point the project will be at PTO. I do have a couple of photos of the solar panels if you'd like me to email them to you. We estimate it will take until the end of the week to get the town sign off and a couple of weeks after that to get Eversource out to give the site a good to go. It'll probably be 3 weeks in total. The middle school received good news on Friday with a stamped structural drawing using a very unique screw that needed to be custom fabricated for the job. Once this supply is procured, they should be into immediate construction. Right now, procurement is in the process of organizing this and all other materials that are being warehoused. We expect contractors will be back on site very soon. Worst case scenario there will be PTO by the end of June. Town meeting, as you know, tomorrow night, that meeting will be held via Zoom. Based upon the action of the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance has been authorized to set the town budgets for the next year at that meeting. As this is a regular reporting month, I will also be updating the Board of Finance on our current budget status at their May meeting next Tuesday. Right now it's on the calendar for Monday, but I checked with Chairman Kader and he anticipates a change to Tuesday due to the holiday. Summer 2020. Yesterday, Governor Lamont signed an executive order authorizing in-person summer school to begin on July 6th. At this point, we have not received any formal guidance on the reopening expectations for summer school or for school next fall. While we would like to return to in-person learning, we believe it is prudent to have a plan A and a plan B for the summer, and perhaps even plans A, B, C, and D for the fall. Our summer plan A has the Family Resource Center opening with a reduced enrollment on June 29th. The Family Resource Center operates under different guidelines. That's why they could start a little earlier. and then an in-person summer school beginning 2 weeks later. This would allow us to experiment with protocols and procedures and gradually increase capacity with the understanding that things may change very quickly. Summer Plan B would be a strictly virtual program, depending on how restrictive the reopening guidelines are, or if we experience a significant increase in COVID cases in the area. In terms of the fall, we anticipate the possibility of operating under a hybrid model of 50-50, but recognize that anything is possible, including a 100% virtual model. We are also considering schedule modifications and the need for additional Chromebooks and wireless access points. In terms of reopening offices and day-to-day operations in preparation for in-person schooling, we have done the following. Started construction of a new elementary office with a man trap and sliding window for drop off and pick up to avoid people from coming in the building. We are planning a remodeling of the middle school office with a turned counter, a man trap, and again, a sliding window for drop off and pickup. We have met with vendors regarding thermal imaging cameras to check temperatures of students, staff, and visitors in a rapid manner. And we've met with vendors regarding sneeze guards, portable partitions, and other precautions to ensure a safe workplace. It's important to note that schools and school districts were always exempt from the stay home, stay safe order. So the decision to close offices was strictly a local decision in the interest of safety, but that does exempt us from some of the reopening Connecticut expectations. But nonetheless, I am committed to doing everything I can to both open our buildings and our offices while keeping people safe. That's why we're looking at all of these measures, many of which are in the Reopen Connecticut plan. Middle school moving up ceremony. Principal Terry Bruce is planning a combination virtual ceremony and reverse parade for the middle school. While we have a tentative date for that, until we can secure everything, we don't want to make that public, but we do have a plan for a middle school moving up. High school graduation. As Molly referenced earlier, Principal Jackie Vetrovic and I had a second meeting with the Committee of Seniors about graduation planning. I am really appreciative of the work that Jackie has done on all of this, both with her staff and her student leaders. The cooperation of everyone involved is exemplary because this is also very emotional for everyone because there are traditions that are being suspended this year due to the virus. I think the plan that they have put together is both creative and will serve our students and our community well. I also appreciate the support of the town in putting this together. And right now, as Molly talked about, they're planning a drive-in style setup on the athletic fields with a large screen and projector with a sound system. Cars would be staged so that they could march into the athletic field to pomp and circumstances just by vehicle instead of on foot. We would also be able to tape the ceremony, and the current guidance from the state would allow the individual senior to exit the vehicle, cross the stage, pick up their diploma, return to their car, and do the same with the next student. So again, great plan. I'm excited about it, and I'm glad we were able to put something together that serves our students well. Also in your report are the monthly reports for each of our schools. If you have any questions for any of the principals or department heads, otherwise that concludes my report. Can't hear you, Jeannie.
Jeannie, I'm trying to unmute you and I'm having trouble.
Sorry.
There you go. That's good.
I asked if there were any questions for Superintendent Sullivan. Okay, seeing that there are none, being that I am I'm sorry, Michael Morrill is waving his hand.
Superintendent Sullivan, is there any guidance that tells us one way or the other about ESY in June?
Yes, the earliest we could do any summer school is July 6th, based upon executive order signed by the governor yesterday.
Thank you.
Jill, did you have a question?
No, I just didn't know if you saw Mike's hand.
Okay, thank you. All right, being that I am newly elected chair, I do not have any report to give. I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything, and I will do my best to execute this office and keep everyone informed. So on to the next item on the agenda, the business section. First item is the DeVos grant. Superintendent Sullivan?
Yes, so earlier this fall, we had the opportunity to apply for this grant, and we were approved in the amount of $64,700 for all of the materials and the installation of a fully functional video distribution system. It includes licenses, text capability, and closed captioning. More importantly, what it'll allow us to do day to day, if we get it up and running under what used to be known as normal, we could have students do our morning announcements like TV news style. But more importantly, on the short term, with all of the restrictions being placed upon schools, if we are in some sort of hybrid model or shutdown like now, we could, in essence, use this system to broadcast events. So if we were doing something with graduation and we needed to limit the number of people in attendance, we could also then use that system to broadcast the event, not just like with a webcam, but with high quality equipment over our website or to a local cable system or something like that. And similarly, if we had an athletic contest, girls basketball was very good this year at the high school. Had they played on the other side of the state, we could send someone with a camera and broadcast the game back over the Board of Education website for people who didn't want to travel to Litchfield or something. So it gives us some capabilities that we don't have now, and it's fully funded by the grant.
Awesome. It looks like we've lost Lauren off the feed.
I'm looking to see if she's trying to rejoin, but not yet. She just popped off a second ago.
Okay.
Oh, here she is.
Okay, so special education audit. Oh, I'm sorry. I need a motion to approve the DeVos grant as presented by Superintendent Sullivan.
Jill, and then Carrie.
So Jill and Carrie.
I said Jill first and then Carrie second.
Yep. Okay. Motion was seconded. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Motion passed. Now on to the special education audit. Superintendent Sullivan?
Thank you. So at the last meeting, I know Mike mentioned the possibility of an audit, and Jeannie followed up with me with a written request to look at doing a special education audit. So I've made a few phone calls in the last couple of weeks, and CERC is going to submit a proposal to conduct the audit for us with an emphasis on indicator 5, making sure that we're educating students in the least restrictive environment, and a review of our SRBI programs at each of the schools to make sure that we're not over-identifying students into special education. So I look forward to seeing their proposal and seeing if we can get this up and running remotely or if we need to wait till next fall.
Can you just repeat that?
Sure.
Just the last part.
I'm hoping that if the audit comes in at a reasonable price, and we elect to move forward with it, that we would be able to start the audit this spring as opposed to having to wait till next fall, because part of the audit is not just a paper file review, but they need to do interviews with students, parents, teachers, and other staff. So that may be challenging for the auditors all over Zoom.
Right. I have to agree on that. So after it was brought to my attention, when the last audit was done, that's what precipitated the request to do the audit. I delved a little further into the special education prevalence in our district. So, you know, I first started looking at the state numbers, and the overall prevalence rate at the state level is 15.6%. Now that takes into account all of the students who are being educated in the public sector in Connecticut. And Putnam's prevalence rate for this school year, sorry, the 2019 and the 2020 school year was 18.2%. But what struck me was that the prevalence of special education has increased over the ensuing 5 years, not just in Putnam, but across the entire state. For example, of all disabilities in the state in the 2015-2016 year, there were 70,054 students that were identified with special education needs. Coming up to the 2019-2020 school year, there were 79,348 students that were identified with needs within Connecticut. And then there were breakdowns in the different areas that are identified for disability. And the majority of those areas showed an increase across the entire state of Connecticut. So we're not alone. But then I looked at our district, and our prevalence, our increased prevalence rate was actually, even though we're at 18.1%, we've only increased by 5.3%, whereas the state increased much more than that. So I will be interested in seeing what CREC, the audit by CREC shows in terms of if we're meeting our students' needs in the best way that we're meeting them. But I'm also interested in seeing where we compare with our prevalence rates. So thank you, Superintendent Sullivan, for taking the steps to look at our special education, because that is a substantial line item in our budgets. A lot of people don't understand that those costs in special education are required by IDA and PPTs and 504 plans. And us doing our due diligence to keep costs down across the district, that doing the audit is one way that we're ensuring that we are utilizing every dollar in our district to effectively educate our students, with each student, whether they have special education needs or not, are getting the best education in order to have their best educational outcomes. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
See your hand. Do you see Mr. Morrell? Jeannie, just checking.
Yep. Mike?
Jeannie, I just want to add, I thank you for bringing up the state statistics. One of the questions that's been asked a lot recently is, why do school budgets increase so much year to year? And this is one of the reasons. We've got about 1,200 kids in the district. The Center for Disease Control just released a report that said 1 in every 6 American children has a developmental disability. So you're talking about 200 kids in our district. the autism rate, when the year I was born, was 1 in 2,000. This year, it's 1 in 43. So the issue is that schools that I went to, or that people in their 30s went to, they're not the same schools as we have today. And the schools that we have today, because the kids are so much more complicated, just cost a lot more to run. And when we're thinking about our budget, we have to educate the town, the citizens, about those costs are essentially fixed costs because of what you said. It's required by federal law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other comments about this?
Nope, seeing none.
All right. Next item, community eligibility provision for Putnam High School. Superintendent
So-
Sullivan or Nancy?
I will take that, Jeannie, thank you. Mrs. LaPlume and I have been looking at the community eligibility provision program for the high school for the last 2 years. When we looked at the figures last year, it didn't make sense to bring the high school in. It made sense to do our middle and elementary school, and you actually have to go through some statistical analysis in order to determine what kind of a reimbursement rate you expect to get, because your reimbursement rate goes down. So we were able to implement the program this year for both middle and elementary. And when we looked at the figures for next year, Mrs. LaPlume and I feel that we can recommend bringing the high school into the program as well. We do anticipate that both revenue and expense this year is going to be down in comparison to the 18-19 year. We also anticipate that 2021 is also probably going to be down. So we took a conservative approach and feel that we feel that we would be okay and be able to cover that program at the high school. And actually, we are excited to be able to offer that to all of the families in Putnam. So it would be our recommendation that we move forward.
Okay. All right. So I thank you, Ms. Cole. I missed a motion under the special education audit, so I apologize. I'm kind of doing double duty here tonight. So do we have a motion to authorize Superintendent Sullivan to contract with REC for a special education audit?
CERC.
I'm sorry, say that again. Oh, CERC.
CERC, not correct.
Yeah, sorry about that, CERC.
I make a motion to have Superintendent Sullivan solicit a proposal with CERC for a audit for our special education.
I'll second that.
That was seconded by Lauren.
Oh,
Carrie. Carrie. Thanks, Carrie. Your voices sound the same via Zoom, so I apologize. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in
Questions?
yeah, that's what I was getting to.
What exactly are we authorizing him? He's going to get a proposal for doing the audit. I don't think we can approve him to go forward with either a dollar amount or an up to amount. So what exactly are we voting on?
So the way that the motion was placed was that we were authorizing to solicit a proposal with CERC, not to enter into an agreement.
I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Sullivan?
Superintendent Sullivan?
Based upon initial conversation, if you wanted to authorize a dollar amount, I anticipate it coming in under 7,500, probably closer to 700 or 7,000, but 7,500 would be safe.
At that point, I think the motion should be amended to approve him to go forward up to 7,500.
Agreed. I amend my original motion to allow us to move forward with this process up to a dollar amount of $7,500.
Okay. So is there a second to that re-amended motion? Okay, thank you, Carrie. So any other questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor, if you may signal by raising your hands.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion was passed. The second one, to do with community eligibility provision for Putnam High School. So we need a motion to move forward with inclusion of Putnam High School in the community eligibility provision for food services.
I see Jamie made the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
And Joe second, Joe.
Are there any questions? All right, seeing that there are no questions, all those in favor, please signal by raising your hand. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, the vote has it to include Putnam High School in the community eligibility provision for food services. All right, so the next item on the agenda is to warn for adoption of policies and regulations. Superintendent Sullivan, do you have anything in addition to add to this?
I do not at this time, unless you would like me to talk about the proposed policy.
So let's see. Where's that? Just give me a second. I don't believe that there are any. So really there's just warn for adoption of the policies and regulations that were discussed during the committee update. So are there any questions regarding that? Okay, seeing none. We need a motion to warn for adoption of the policies that were discussed. So that would be policy 5111, policy 5112, policy 5131.6, and then next month we vote on the policy, then we'll also address the regulation 5131.6, policy 5141.4 with the associated regulation 5141.4, and then policy 3171.1. So is there a motion to warn for adoption of these policies?
I make a motion to warn for adoption the policies as proposed by Chairman Ms. Dodd.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ed. Any questions? Any comments? Okay. All those in favor, please signal by raising your hand. Any opposition? Abstentions? Okay. It's passed unanimously. Okay. Flexible spending account. Superintendent Sullivan, you're back on board.
Pass the buck to Nancy Cole.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cole.
The IRS has increased the limit for the flexible spending accounts from $2,700 a year to $2,750 a year, and we would like to recommend that the board authorize that for our employees.
Okay, is there a motion to approve? Okay, Ed Perrin made the motion. Is there a second?
Second by Jamie.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Any questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, if we may have a vote, those in favor, please signal by raising your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passed unanimously. Next on the agenda is budget discussion. Okay. So it looks like the Board of Finance last night at the Board of Selectmen's meeting was authorized to act on the town, library, and Board of Education budget, and then to set the mill rate. So as Superintendent Sullivan already stated, the town meeting by Zoom will be tomorrow evening. The budgets that were discussed at the town hearing places the education budget at $18,794,000, which is an increase of $250,000. We will see what the Board of Finance votes on in regards to the budgets. With that being said, Superintendent Sullivan and Ms. Cole have been working as well as the Board of Education to look at where the reallocation and cuts would happen with the budget. So Superintendent Sullivan or Ms. Cole, could you bring us up to date on where we are on that?
So I would just like to begin by saying that I really appreciate all of the people that have taken the time to come out and comment on our budget, not just tonight, but over the last couple of months. I know that, it may not always seem that way, but I know that I appreciate the feedback. I know that the board appreciates the feedback, the concern that people have for our employees and the community. I know that this is a difficult time to try to kind of manage the needs of the Board of Education while being cognizant of what everybody's going through with COVID-19 and layoffs and taxes, and that this is just a complicated year. Over the last few weeks, the administration and the board have spent a great deal of time looking at the budget, the needs of our students, and we've maintained the following objectives. Remembering that the first obligation is to our students, their academic needs, their social emotional needs. Seeking reductions that do not compromise the needs of our students while minimizing the impact on staff. And when possible, trying to make staff reductions through attrition. And bearing in mind that this fiscal challenge requires long-term solutions and not just things that will make it easy for this year, because otherwise this will come back to bite us next year and the year after. So based upon what we anticipate is going to happen with the budget at the town level, but also recognizing that the board and the subcommittee have not made decisions on outsourcing, I can really just give you a list of areas that we're looking at to try to kind of balance the budget. One is our health insurance. We've been in a favorable position. So while it may seem a little bit reckless in a time of a pandemic, we believe that we have strong health reserves and that we could make a reduction of $100,000 there for the upcoming year. Again, that may be one of those cuts that we wouldn't be able to always do every year, but it is one that we should be able to do right now. We have 3 paraprofessional positions that are not filled right now. So we could not fill those again next year. That would save just under $100,000, but that would not result in anybody that is currently employed losing a job. We do have folks in the district who have an 092, and we do have some flexibility with staffing at the high school. So we could fill the Dean of Students position on an interim basis using existing staff. So we would only have to pay the difference between the salary that we're already paying for somebody in a teaching position and the cost of the dean position. So based upon based upon the position being fully in the budget, that would be a reduction of approximately $64,000. We could level fill substitutes. So that would be 10,000 less than we proposed in the budget. We also anticipate, because of COVID-19, that there'll be fewer conferences next year, or that they would be online. So we could reduce some of the money and level fund admin conferences, staff conferences, and athletic purchase services. We could also level fund landscaping, repair and maintenance of buses. We could delay the purchase of instruments, support some of the sports supplies, the sports uniforms, and because of all the stuff that we're already doing with technology, we should be able to actually reduce $7,000 from technology equipment for next year's budget. So that kind of gives you a snapshot of where we would get to, and then it really leaves whether we decide to outsource or not. If we decide not to outsource, then we're going to have to come back to the table and look for about somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 to 50,000 additional beyond what I mentioned right now.
Okay. Any questions for Superintendent Sullivan?
Mr. Morrow. And then
So I just want to be clear, in my opinion, why we're in this position. The Board of Finance, without consultation to the Board of Ed in terms of the impact of cuts, reduced our request from $1,078,000 to $250,000. All of the concerns that have been expressed about outsourcing, about cutting hours, Cecile Lee's story the other night at the second public hearing, they are absolutely heartbreaking. And there is not one Board of Ed member that wants to be in this position, and we don't have to be. The town has millions of dollars, literally, sitting into reserve funds. The Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen is choosing, unlike tonight the Special Service District did, they increased their budget 6.99% this year. And the way that they controlled it was they used surplus money to offset the tax increase. The leaders of our town are choosing not to do that. So the Board of Ed is in this position where we are having to make these draconian cuts. As I listened to Superintendent Sullivan's list of dismantling the schools, We're going to delay instruments. We're going to not fill para positions that people have been screaming about for years. And that's a shame, since the money, the people's money, is sitting in two accounts that could be used just like the Special Service District voted to do tonight. Thank you.
Any other statements?
Jeannie,
Questions?
I thought I saw that Carrie had one earlier, but it looks like she stepped away, and I know that Ed has one as well. But.
Okay, Ed?
Yes, excuse me, I'm extremely disappointed when I hear that our secretarial staff will be losing 5 hours per week. At what cost? As far as I can see, these are the people that are running the school system. I'm also disappointed with all the other things that are being done, instituting a wrestling program, volleyball program. Don't they need coaches and they're going to get paid more? I've been a member of this board for 11 years. I have never seen such discrepancy between the town and the Board of Ed. I don't hear the town complaining to the state for all the unfunded mandates that we are required, and there are about 285 of them that we're responsible for. I mean, we care for students when they're age 3 and 4, daycare, all through high school. We feed them, we nurture them, we care for them. We're an existing family of this community. And I'm sorry, you know, we have a dual form of ideals. We give them accolades, Putnam pride. I think the pride is gone. I'm sorry, but we've got to stop this nonsense. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Ed. Carrie, you wanted to speak?
I had a question. I know the last time that Dan had gone over like potential cuts, there was talk of not filling one of the reading specialists. Is that still part of that?
So what list I read you tonight, for a couple of points of clarity. One, there was no mention of reducing secretarial hours in the list that I read tonight. I know that has come up before. That is not something that we're proposing at this moment in time. We also do not have the reading position on there right now. We also do not have a reduction in world language on there right now. The list that I have right now, and I won't bore you with the numbers again, was health insurance, 3 unfilled paraprofessional positions. It has us filling the dean position using a current employee who's already a teacher. We do not have anybody picked out. We have multiple employees who have an 092 who could potentially apply for and fill that role. We do, and then the rest of it was basically level funding things to get us to the bottom line. The wild card in all of this is what we want to do with outsourcing. And at this point in time, I do not have the safety officers in the budget, and that's a discussion that I think the board has to have. I didn't include safety officers in the budget right now because I've clearly heard from a lot of people that they don't feel it's a priority. As superintendent, I think it would be irresponsible of me to not recommend that we have safety officers, given the all of the districts around us, the common nature of this in education today, and the recommendation of the safety auditor. But with that said, I could also understand why the board might look at everything else and make the decision to delay that. But I need to do my due diligence because it's the job that you hired me to do.
Any other questions?
Superintendent Sullivan, how are we thinking about what are going to be very likely unplanned for costs as we move to next year when we talk about rotating schedules potentially, or having a percentage of our kids in school and some at home, needing to create more space between kids in classrooms, kids in the hallway, kids in the cafeteria. How are we thinking about all of those costs associated with that in relation to our budget?
So a lot of that, as I alluded to before, we're trying to get ahead of it and do as much of it in the current fiscal year as we can, because, as things have settled out more, as Nancy talked about, there's $100,000 in savings from not having spring sports. We do have stimulus money coming our way, whether it comes before June 30th or after July 1st, we do have federal money that's coming to address all that. So we're trying to get ahead of as much of that as we can. But as I pointed out to you before, we have not received any guidance from the state yet. So I don't know whether it's their expectation for 10 students to a classroom where half come today and half come tomorrow. I don't know if it's their expectation that it's 15 students to a classroom. I don't know if it's their expectation that every student comes every day. They have also not given us any guidance on the number of students on a school bus. And, if it's one student to a seat and half come today, half come tomorrow, we're going to be okay. But, I also don't know if they'll decide to put dividers on the seats in the school buses so that two kids could sit at a seat, but they would have a barrier between them. There's more questions than answers right now. So we're going to anticipate as much as we can, but I can't answer your question because, as I pointed out in my report earlier, I also would not be shocked if we had a model where it was completely distance learning next year too, because if things become so restrictive and so prohibitive, school districts in the state, not just Putnam, will have trouble operating. And participating in the New England Association of Schools and Colleges weekly webinar series, where they talk to schools in Germany and Denmark and Asia about reopening. Some of them are on an every other day. Some of them are on double sessions, but I think double sessions will also create a hardship for our parents. But that would blow out the cost because we would have to negotiate with all of our bargaining units the impact of double sessions. We would have to, reevaluate our transportation costs, our custodial costs, our disinfecting costs. But again, I don't think double sessions will actually be realistic. Part of it works in Europe because they also don't have the kids eat at school. As you know, we just took a measure that approved us feeding everybody every day. So not feeding our students would not be an option for us.
Okay, so I would just like to speak briefly about the budget. Thinking about each board's responsibility during the budget season, as the Board of Education, we need to make decisions keeping our students at the top. And I think that's what we have tried to do, is we put forth a budget that addressed the student needs in order to maintain and increase student achievement, as well as to address social, emotional, and safety issues. Unfortunately, with COVID hitting, the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance have to do their jobs, and their jobs are to look out for the best interest of the taxpayers and to put forth what type of budget they feel the taxpayers at the time that the budgets are being formulated and looking at what a potential mill rate could possibly be. Now, the vote isn't going to happen until tomorrow night's the town meeting, and then the Board of Finance typically will vote on the budget, and then they set the mill rate thereafter. Even with the mill rate, the way that they're anticipating it's going to be less than the current mill rate, which, by the way, we have one of the lowest mill rates in the state. It does mean that the average household in Putnam is going to see an increase in their taxes, their annual taxes. So, you know, looking at each of our responsibilities, I can see where the Board of Finance is trying to be fiscally responsible for the taxpayers. But I have to agree with Mr. Morrill that, you know, as a Board of Education, it is our responsibility to put forth budgets and to advocate for budgets that meet the needs of our students. I wish at this time we could anticipate exactly how COVID-19 is going to impact our budget that we're looking to get approval from the Board of Finance from, as they have forth at the 18 million mark. But there's too many unknowns, as Superintendent Sullivan said, about what's going to happen with schooling for next year. And it's a moving target. And the best that we're going to be able to do is just keep people informed at our monthly meetings and through any special meetings about any adjustments that need to be made to the budget and any type of resources that are coming in from the state or federal government to help offset any type of costs. So that brings me to another point that a lot of people don't really understand, is that there was an executive order put through by the governor that requires municipalities to pay their employees. So every employee in our school district has been being paid while we have the COVID-19 in place by executive order of the governor. Each of those employees have been tasked with work to be done that's befitting of their position in the district. Superintendent Sullivan and the administrators continue to work with all of our personnel in order to make sure that our schools are well cared for, that students are learning, and I have to thank Miss Bates for speaking in regards to how she felt her children's learning has been. I know that our teachers and staff have gone above and beyond, and from a Board of Ed perspective, very, very grateful that they are meeting the needs of students in the best way possible, and they're making the connections with students, because we can't forget that our students they have social and emotional needs as well. And being that a lot of kids are not having that developmental interaction with their peers, which is more appropriate for school-age kids, when kids do come back to the building, there are going to be some significant needs. And I trust that Superintendent Sullivan and his administration team will have a sound plan in place to deal with transition back into the classrooms, and we'll continue working with them to have multiple different plans in place based on any such guidance that comes from the governor or the State Department of Education. Thank you. Is there any other comments on the budget? Any other questions for Superintendent Sullivan? Okay. So the next items on the agenda were outsourcing of transportation and custodial. I do appreciate the members of the community who did speak out in regards to the outsourcing. We have tabled these two items to a special meeting on June 2nd at 7 p.m. That brings us to approval of priority list. Superintendent Sullivan.
In your packet tonight, you do have a proposed priority list for unexpended balance. We are looking at technology for distance learning. I think that's no surprise to all of you, because one of the challenges that we've had, while I appreciate the comment earlier tonight about how distance learning is going, we know that one of the challenges is that many of our families do not have enough devices for everybody who's currently in school. Thus, it makes it difficult for us to do any sort of in-person set schedule instruction, because you have 2 or 3 children sharing one device, especially if the parent's working from home. So we are looking to purchase additional devices to support distance learning. We are also looking at replacing the fire panel at the middle school. This has been a project that's been on the list for a while. And then other COVID-related projects. One of the questions that Mike had before was about expenses. A lot of the stuff that's in the Reopen Connecticut includes plexiglass barriers for our office desks, floor markings, specific signs, and other things that we have to do to be in compliance to operate a safe workspace. And again, we have not gotten all of the guidance for schools yet, so a lot of this guidance is going off of Reopen Connecticut for other businesses. But based upon the information in there, a lot of it seems logical that it'll also be expected of us with schools.
Could you, on the COVID projects, could you give us some examples of what that money would be spent for? That's a pretty hefty sum, $110,000.
2 of those projects we've already started, but we have not purchased everything that we need. So, we're able to turn the counter in the middle school because we would utilize the same counter. We have tile that we could replace for damaged tile for when we pull up the counter and we turn it. But we're getting a price, for example, on the windows that are in the foyer at the middle school between the outside door and the inside door. There's 3 small fixed windows there now. We're getting a price to blow out the block to replace those windows and having a sliding window there. So, because one of the recommended guidance that we have is to reduce the number of people coming into the school. So now a parent coming to drop something off or pick something up would actually never enter the school, never enter the office. So that would be one type of thing we'd be looking to do. Regular offices in Connecticut that reopen have to either put in partitions and or put up glass that they refer to as sneeze guards around secretary desks and stuff like that. Seems logical to me that if students are going to be in schools, they're going to want that kind of protection between the secretaries and either students or the public. So there's a lot there that we have to do between our guidance suites, our libraries, and our school offices and our Board of Education offices. And those are just few examples, but again, we have not gotten all of the guidance yet.
Any other questions, Superintendent Sullivan?
I'll make the motion to approve the priority list.
Thanks, Jimmy. Is there a second?
Mike Morrell, second.
Mike Morrell, seconded. Okay. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, passed unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda The approval of the.
Mr. Morrell, did you have a? I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Mike
Go
was
ahead.
raising his hand, so I wasn't sure.
Thank you. You're keeping me on track there,
That's
Monica.
okay.
I appreciate it. Mike?
You have to unmute lips. There you go.
Just a quick point of order. Do the next two items need to go to executive session first?
Yes, they do. So we need to move the discussion on the tentative agreement for the nurses union and the tentative agreement for the administrators union to executive session.
The motion.
So the motion's made by Jamie. Is there a second? Lauren seconded. All in favor, please by signal by raising your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Those are sent to executive session for discussion. Any other citizens' comments?
For citizens' comments, for anyone who's waiting, I do know I have one person who just made a request. First, that's Deb Lefebvre, and then we'll just put it in the chat and I'll call the names as they show up. I know that she just chatted 2 seconds ago. So we're going to do the same way we did the first round of citizens' comments.
Beautiful.
So that would be Deb Lefebvre. Deb, if you can hear me, if you want, you can turn your video on, but your speaker is on.
All right, thank you. I feel a need, again, to point out that in the elementary school, we need more paras to meet our special education student needs. This past year, we didn't have enough staff, and we now have more students coming up from preschool for this next school year. I feel we should be in compliance with their IEPs, and we definitely need more paras to help with that. So that's my thought for the day.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Deb, I'm having trouble finding you. If you could just mute your mic, because I was trying to do it before and having a little difficulty. The next person up is Chris Allard.
Okay.
Hi. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Jeannie. Thank you for your time again. I was going to speak earlier, and I'm glad actually I waited on my comments until later. I just want to thank Superintendent Sullivan for reviewing the budgets and the cuts, and for the Board of Education for listening to the town comments and the teacher comments previously regarding, the cuts. We knew that cuts were coming, but where they came from, obviously is a difficult choice. But I just appreciate you looking at maintaining the staff that we have, knowing going back to school, we're going to need more staff than ever. And I just want to ask a clarifying question, Dan. I don't know if you have the answer today. I just got this information today that the money from the CARES Act has been released and that the town is due to get $256,000. And I know they have the discretion to do with what they choose with that, but is there any indication that that could be coming the Board of Education way? Did we lose Dan? Actually,
I'm right here. I went down to Nancy's office. We have not received anything beyond the information that I got last week, which just indicates that the money is coming. They have not given us any direction as to when or whether it comes to the Board of Ed or goes to the town and then has to get allocated to the Board of Ed. No additional information yet.
Okay, thank you. So just to add to that, I know that we really appreciate the teachers coming back in, but I just want to reiterate what Deb Lefebvre said. I work very closely with the population of kids with autism in our district, and we are moving several kids forward from preschool to kindergarten. And they're definitely going to need support staff. So when looking at that funding, if there is any way to reallocate to get some of those paras back in, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Next is Bob Garceau.
Yes, Bob Garceau, 10 Broad Street. I have a question for the superintendent, and maybe the Board of Education already knows the answer, but the 4 security officers, I'd like to know what the rationale was for that. Did the principals request that? Did the teachers felt that they needed security officers in the school system?
So,
I'll address it. Dan's trying to get logged back in. He got knocked off. Bob, that was actually a recommendation from a state safety audit that we are required to do. That was one of the strongest recommendations, and it was pointed out that we are one of the only districts that doesn't have safety officers. So that's where that came from. That wasn't something that he came up with when all the shootings down the other end of the state happened. That's when they started recommending safety officers in schools, in Connecticut specifically. And this last safety audit, we have to do the safety audit, I believe it's every year. Every other year, sorry, every year. And last year was the year we had to do it. And that was one of the strongest recommendations they had. And that actually gets put forward to the state. And we have to be careful when we have to do some of these audits. If we ignore their requests, they tend to hold back grant money. You know, that can also be a deterrent for getting some of the important grants that we need to keep things going. So that's where that came from.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Mike?
I just want to add to Jamie's answer. About a year and a half ago, in our last teacher negotiation, safety within the school was one of the teachers' primary issues in negotiations. And it was because of a series of incidents that have happened in the school. So it's not a, kind of just a fear. It's actually real things going on real days. Classrooms being cleared, furniture being thrown, complicated kids that we're working with. We also heard it last year from our parents loud and clear. There was a special meeting of the PTO at the elementary school where many parents showed up expressing concerns about safety and responsiveness to children in crisis. And then the last piece that Jamie said to you. This was also included in the most recent FBI recommendations for school districts across the country, that schools need to be able to answer the question, have we done everything that we can reasonably, not everything that we can imagine, but everything that we can reasonably do in the times that we're living in to ensure safety for our children and our staff? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to know really what the reason was, and you've explained it. And I had an inclination in my mind that was probably part of the reasons why, and it had been requested and people were concerned. It's just good to hear the details that went into this, so that when it eventually does come up that you need 4 security officers, at least I personally will know that the reason that they're asking for these officers is a reasonable reason. Thank you.
So I'd just like to weigh in on that a little bit more as well. You know, the Board of Education is very committed to making sure that our schools are safe. And, you know, we do recognize and we listen to all of the comments that came from citizens about the Board of Education budget. And one of the resounding items was that people were against adding new positions while we were cutting other positions. So taking a look at what potentially our schools will look like next year, the superintendent, although reluctantly, has not included those 4 positions in the budget in order to meet the budget amount that has been recommended by Board of Finance to the townspeople. So I just want to reiterate that the Board of Education is not seeing this as a low priority. We feel that the safety and security of our school buildings and every child within our buildings is of utmost priority. And this discussion will continue about security officers and what that may look like. So this isn't a one and done deal. We will be discussing this further in the future.
And there's a comment from Gloria Marion as well.
Okay. Gloria?
Yes, Gloria Marion, 27 Clarence Street. I wanted to say I appreciated the number given tonight of the $107,000 for the spring sports and savings, but I was looking also for what the projected general budget balance would be and any other savings that might have come through not having students in school, transportation, what those numbers would look like. There was no mention of that, so I was
The
wondering.
174,000 that we mentioned is the total savings of all areas.
Can you say that again, Jamie?
After our increased expenses in some areas, we had savings in others. So
Okay, I didn't hear what you were first saying.
the $174,000 that we're talking about is total saving from all line items, all departments. That is the bottom line of the budget that's going to be saved. That is going to be put into other areas of safety for next year.
Okay, so the 107 is from spring sports?
No,
and there's
174, 174,000 is total savings.
But the 107 is a correct number.
Okay, then the 107, yes, but the total savings, including the 174,000. And that needs to be put back into some repairs and for COVID safety for next year.
Okay, so there was an additional 60 some odd $1,000 then in savings?
Correct.
Yeah, because you have to remember that we've already incurred some substantial expenses related to COVID-19 in order to get technology for students to use at home, as well as cleaning equipment and additional cleaning and supplies for the district.
Right, but I thought that was part of the reimbursement you were getting from the federal government in the COVID reimbursement, as far as taking care of the cleaning. But I hear you, Jeannie. I appreciate the time. So the total is 174,000 in savings then.
And Gloria, as Dan said, we don't know where or when that money's coming. We don't know if it's coming to the school, to the town as the general budget, or when it's coming.
Do you know how much is earmarked for Putnam?
I believe it's 255,000.
Okay.
We also don't know when next year's expenses are going to be.
And we also don't know what next expenses are going to be for the COVID, or what the learning situation is going to be like. You know, there's so many unknowns because the state hasn't given us any kind of guidance.
Dan, you can unmute yourself. Gloria, did you have any other questions?
No, that's fine. I just wanted to know what the overall total savings has been. So the final number is 174,000.
As of that's the best guess of today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for calling.
There's no one else in the queue at this time.
Perfect. So seeing that there's no other citizens' comments, we're going to take a brief recess for those citizens that are on Zoom to sign off. And then we're going to go into executive session to discuss agreements with the nurses union, agreements with the administrators union, the superintendent's evaluation and contract, For the first two items, Superintendent Sullivan and Ms. Cole will be invited to attend. At which point, after those are discussed, we will come out of executive session. And if there are any motions to be made, we will make motions at that point. I don't have an anticipated time for how long executive session will last. If anybody is wanting to sign back in, we can make efforts to notify people.
Gee, I'm turning the meeting over to Mr. Sullivan as the host right now, so there shouldn't be any kind of interference. And then he'll have access to all the participant lists to make sure that the only people on that list are people who are participating in executive session.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Monica, for moderating.
You're welcome. And I'm turning off the recording now as well.
Okay, thank you.
You got it. You're welcome. Take care. Have a nice night.